I have no idea if people heard that because. All right, wait. Hang on. Oh, that's what was happening. I was listening to. I had the stupid YouTube open. That's what was going on. All right, so
it's not very professional.
No. This is the most unprofessional outfit you can imagine. So, all right. So Rob is usually my tech guy. So, let me see. Here we go. Of course, Rob is gone. All right. So this show is going to be an interesting one. So no Rob tonight. Joe Boca is obviously my local friend. I don't know if everybody knows him. He used to be Jiu-Jitsu Joey on.
I still am. It's just I lurk in the shadows now.
All right, we got to move the mic.
Those who know, those who don't, and yeah, it's fine.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, that's what's most important.
Alberto
knows.
I wanted to get Alberto on because
this has been one of my pet projects for actually quite some time. was pushing Alberto.
All right, so Joe came to me like a month ago, and he's like, "Dude, you should get me and Alberto on for a show." And I was like, I go, okay. So Alberto, I remember hating you on Twitter, like legit not liking you. And over time, because first off, I did not like the term bogus Oreo. Okay. Well, I didn't like the term bogus Ordo. So I thought the term bogus Ordo was like boomer cringe, kind of like when Sean Hannity says drive-by media, or he says like, like it came off as like a corny, conservative slogan to me, like the bogus Ordo. But then you guys had a typo and started saying bogus Oreo, because when you typed bogus Ordo, it came out as Oreo, and it just became funny to me. And then you wrote a tweet recently where you said, "Did the eclipse make the bogus Ordite straight?" And I don't think I've laughed that hard at a tweet in a long time. So I wanted to get you on because I think our Twitter personalities are misunderstood. Is that a fair assessment?
I don't know. It's funny because the term bogus Ordo, it's for sure like boomer cringe. I mean, undoubtedly. But recently, I mean, and this is like within the last 3 weeks or whatever, I've been thinking it's kind of based how the boomers don't care how cringe they are.
Like, it's a bit Giga Chad, yeah.
So I was going to name the show Reverend Bogus Ordo, and I thought that would be so inside joke that nobody will get it.
Well, where that came from, Reverend Bogus Ordo.
No. It started with you writing a tweet, Reverend Novus Ordo,
a long time ago.
And
then the reason why that caught on was that tweet did very well, actually. That did numbers, as they say. And the religious hippie replied to it. And
but he didn't give context.
No,
he just wrote Reverend Novus Ordo.
And she replied to it, and it made its way to Catholic Simplotch. And it got a lot of it. So that just saying Reverend Novus Ordo or Reverend Bogus Ordo at this point became a meme. So
all right, but even the idea of just writing Reverend Novus Ordo with no context, you had people so confused because they didn't know if you were saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. So you of course have people chiming in with just their opinions. Like people, it's funny how people read a tweet, which this whole show is going to be a lot about Twitter, guys. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is Twitter, war, Alberto and I and you.
Yeah, so it's the idea of how people perceive somebody's tweet. So I get messages all the time saying, "I hated you on Twitter, and then I saw your show, and you like I came around to you." And I think it was very similar for me with Alberto, where I really didn't like him on Twitter, and then I saw you on the rundown a couple of times. I was like, "Oh, he's just a dude." Like, and I think 90% of why people don't get along nowadays is because they don't just sit, have a beer together, and just talk.
Well, it's that, and then I think it's also, there's a little bit of background noise I should go away shortly. Anyway, it's also because we're just accustomed to immediately have the most, and this sounds bogus ordo, but immediately to have the most uncharitable interpretation of other people, just in general for everything. You know, so it's like,
So you're saying that people lack nuance when they read your Twitter, maybe?
Maybe they do, but it's sort of like, yeah, I'm just a guy. I work. I'm married. I have kids. That's it. I think about something during the day, and then I just go, and then I post it, and it as Jujitsu Joey said, it does quote unquote numbers or whatever sometimes, even though. But that's that with the bogus ordo. I didn't even come up with it. I read it. So somebody said it in a chat, and Joe, you know what I'm talking about.
Of course.
Somebody said it in the chat, and I thought that was pretty funny. Now, the genius of the Reverend Novus Ordo tweet is that you had I don't remember exactly. I remember the tweet, but I don't remember the reactions. But just by knowing the tweet, I can know the reactions. It's like probably like the backwards feet got really angry. And it's like, okay, why are you guys getting mad at this term that you guys supposedly believe in? So even that term just gets them riled up. And that says a lot, I think. I mean, I don't know what to say.
Well, okay. So, the thing is, the reason the term kind of grew on me is because I think we're at a point where if you don't mock the absurdity of some of the things going on, so I almost feel like you were ahead of your time a bit. I wasn't okay. So the first time you threw that phrase out, I'll even say like where I was with even having conversations with people on this show was, okay, I want to kind of be an open, like a big tent channel, right? And I want anybody that comes and watches the show to feel welcome. Like, I still think that people that go to the Novus Ordo, it's not their fault that the bishops promulgated this thing, right? So I think your average Orthodox, faithful Catholic is kind of just stuck with the Novus Ordo. So I don't blame the people that attend it because it's not their fault that the bishops promulgated this. I do think that anybody that makes the effort to go to a traditional mass is going to reap the benefits of that, right? But some of the things we see in the Novus Ordo are just so preposterous at this point that I've kind of come around to saying, okay, we need to start mocking this stuff. Like, it's just so ridiculous that it kind of needs to be made fun of.
Yeah, we have to. I agree, and I think that's a idea behind just using the phrase over and over. Number one, I've always been pretty good at, because I'm the eldest of my family, so I knew how to push my younger brother's buttons, and I still do, and is who I am. So I sort of know how to push people's buttons. I know that wording does that, so I kind of enjoy it, so to speak. But that I agree with the mocking. There's just nothing else to do. Because we're not clergy, we just are not. So we try to raise our families in the faith as best as we can, and at the end of the day, it's just we have to mock it. I mean, we do it in politics. I mean, how many people that get mad at the bogus ordo wording are sharing Michael Obama tweets or memes or whatever?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. That's actually kind of funny. That's actually a really good point, right? Okay, so me and Joe before the show, what we were talking about was what converted us. So, all right, so you're a cradle Catholic, right? You can always tell a cradle Catholic. Like we kind of.
It's kind of weird, but yes, I agree. It's very.
You kind of always
weird,
tell a cradle Catholic. They kind of they got the culture in them, even if they weren't raised strictly Catholic. They kind of like when they have their reversion, they kind of just are going back to something they know. Like, what was your upbringing? Were you raised Catholic? Did you have a reversion later on? What happened?
So I was raised in the bogus ordo.
As
I was raised in the exactly. I was raised in the Novus Ordo, baptized, did my first communion, confirmation. Well, actually, I was confirmed like a week before my first communion. That's because I was born in Mexico, so that's how they would do it there. So before age of 10 or whatever, at the age of first communion, I was confirmed, then received my first communion. Sort of went through life like almost any normal, person that grows up in the Novus Ordo. Maybe, my dad was very much, he was not against religion, but he was not in favor of it. So if my mom wanted to take us to catechism lessons, he would let her do that.
So funny.
They have,
Yeah. What we were talking about
Yeah,
before.
fair.
All right, so wait, how old are your parents?
I not that old. My dad, I think he's a few years from turning 60.
Yeah.
And then my mom's like early 50s.
I see. So they're your parents are kind of Gen X boomer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? So me and Joe were actually, dude, we had a really interesting conversation about just how the boomers, and I know boomers watch the show, and you guys have to understand, like you guys were in the revolution, and you had this real Catholicism that comes before that, despite all its problems. But then the revolution comes, and there's a total abandonment of catechesis, and the boomer generation fails to pass on the faith to Gen X. And what happens is you actually do have John Paul II evangelizes a lot of people, and you also have Medjugorje going on in the 80s and stuff. So you get a wellspring of conversions, but they do convert into the Novus Ordo faith, right? Which I know that sounds like we're separating Novus Ordo from Catholicism, but you have to understand that how drastic of a change it goes from before the council and after the council. So John Paul II converts all these people. So you have a lot of JP2 Catholics. You have a lot of Medjugorje charismatic Catholics. And me and Joe were talking about how Lefebvre during this time, like during the 88 consecrations, watching all this, and then he sees the Assisi meetings, just how alien this must have all seemed to him, right? But you have this boomer generation who's part of the revolution who just kind of abandons catechesis and allows guitars to come into the mass, and they don't pass the faith on to their kids. And it's just this weird thing where we're all kind of dealing with the remnants of that thing. And what's popping up now is something new. It's not strictly traditional Catholicism like it was before the council. It's kind of this weird blend of Zoomers and millennials trying to be shocking, but are just so fed up with the revolution, I think.
Exactly. And a lot of us, I'm sure that I can relate to this, and both of you guys can relate to this because we're all cradle Catholics. We see in the generations the effects of that time in our family, and how it maybe not in every case destroyed. In my case, it did not destroy our family, but you can definitely see the little changes to where maybe before the church was the church for men, and then after the council, a total break. So men are looking for masculinity, our grandfathers, great grandfathers, and so on and so forth, but can no longer find it in the church. And that created sort of like an identity crisis. And then they didn't know necessarily where to go from there. I can definitely see that in my lineage, because I don't know either on my mother's or on my father's side. I don't know. Oh, my grandfather converted to Catholicism. No, I don't even know. It just has always been.
Well, yeah, so it always has been. But even the idea that your father didn't participate in passing on the faith, but your mother did, right? This is something that strictly the boomers did. My mother raised me in the faith. My father did not. So I have 8 siblings. Like, I was a very Catholic family, dude. Like, I have 4 brothers, 4 sisters. My parents didn't, use birth control, but my dad kind of went along for the ride, where my mom was the main catechist in our home, and she didn't give us a deep catechesis because she didn't know. It was more she always loved Jesus. She loved the Catholic faith, and she just didn't know how to, especially boys. Women don't know how to talk to young men about the faith. It's just it's not in their nature.
No, absolutely. That's very similar to me. And so basically, long story short, did that, went to college and all that. I had friends that were converting to Protestantism. For some reason, I hated going to the mass. I didn't know that in mass at all. I hated going to mass. I always, even now, the times that I have been, for whatever circumstance, to a Bogus Ordo, I feel like I felt when I was a child, that it's like this, like, anxiety of feeling of, I just can't wait to get out of here. Sort of like when you're at the DMV, sort of like, when's my turn, because I got to get out and go do something else. I guess that's the best way to describe it. went through college. I never had any interest in it because I've always felt a lot of cringe with like praise and worship music. Like I just feel physically sick with it. I don't know why. And so I never was interested. So I guess I never really left the faith. Then I got married. My wife converted to the faith after we got married. We got a dispensation.
Okay, so your wife
in the
converts before you.
No. I was so this was a very interesting moment where I was going to the Bogus Ordo, and then I started asking myself questions like, oh, wait a second, did the Mexican martyrs really die for a guitar mass? I didn't even know that the traditional mass, but I was already.
Okay, so how old were you when you got
asking
married?
my questions.
How old were you when you got married?
I think like 22. I think.
Me too.
Or
Nice.
maybe a little, I forget exactly, but yeah.
So was your wife Catholic or was she something else and she converts?
No, she was something else. She was Protestant. She was Protestant.
Dude, this is funny. All right, so my wife was Lutheran. So okay, so you dude, I feel like we have a very similar story. Your dad's not really your mom catechizes you. You're going to the Novus Ordo. What leads you to? All right, so you start thinking about the Mexican martyrs.
Primarily the Mexicans because we're Mexican, but just martyrs in general. Like, okay, I know about the martyrs, and I'm already like in my early 20s. So you sort of start asking yourself some of these questions about principles, and so then I started thinking, did they die for a guitar mass? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that because my grandmother would always tell us, oh, when I was little, the mass was in Latin. But I thought, okay, maybe just like the Novus Ordo, but in Latin. So I was like, oh, interesting. Then I started asking myself questions. Then I went to my first Latin mass, and my wife, who was not Catholic at the time, she said, well, no, I don't want to go because I won't understand it. And I said, well, you don't want to convert, so who cares if you understand it or not? So then I went to, she said home.
Is your wife Mexican too?
Yeah, she is. She is.
You ever say to her, like, how could you be Protestant as a Mexican? Like, how could you be a Mexican Protestant, you traitor? Wait, you're muted. Why is he muted? What happened? Why can't we hear him? Oh no, I can't hear you. I don't know if it's on our end. Wait, because it doesn't show you're muted. Hang on, let me see. Audio, speaker. Yeah, it still says we're on speaker. Wait, what happened there? Wait, can Alberto's wife muting the stream? Oh, it's on your end, dude. I don't know. Did you unplug your mic? Oh no. Oh boy. Right as we get to the heart of why his wife. Is it just me and Joe that can't hear him? Or all right, now you're definitely muted. I see you're muted now. No, still can't hear you. Let me see.
You want to try going off and on?
Yeah, but bounce off and then come back on. Me and Joe will hold it down. Bounce off and then just come back on. All right. So yeah, me and Joe were talking about how I know everybody gets upset when you talk about boomers, but there was something.
Boomers are boomers and boomers are boomers. It just is what it is.
But there's something about how they have a mentality where they almost, not all of them, but they have this feeling like they had their kids, but their kids spoiled their fun or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, the boomers have this mentality, at least seemingly, that Owen Benjamin did a lot of content on boomers recently. That was all very good. And
can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
That's
okay, perfect.
Boomers seem to have this sort of mentality that they had children and somehow they resent their own kids, as though like the children they had are ruining all the fun that they had at Woodstock or something, and they're just interrupting the big party, although they decided to have these children.
Yeah.
So this seems to be their modus operandi.
Okay, so you marry a Mexican trader who's Protestant. My wife was Lutheran, but she's German, so you expect that of the Germans. They're awful people. But so you marry a Mexican Protestant girl. Now, all right, so you start thinking about these things a little bit deeper, right?
Exactly. And so actually how it started was that I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to marry her. Because I knew all of these noble sort of girls and stuff, but they were all extremely feminist. And so, so I was like, well, she seems like and my mother-in-law always raised her with all the modesty stuff, with all of the stuff that more conservative Protestants do. So I thought, well, I have more in common with this Protestant girl than with which at the time I didn't know the term, this Catholic noble sort of girls. So anyway, so then I told her, well, you're not converting. Well, no. Let me go back. When we were going to get married, I said, okay, her family is very devout Protestant, very, very devout. So if I'm going to get married to her, I need to get my ducks in order and decide if I'm going to stay Catholic or convert. I knew the history, I knew all of that, but I just had never had an interest in looking into it because I had no reason to join a church that was not Catholic.
Yeah.
And so she had a Bible. Because they were very, very devout. They still are. She's no longer devout Protestant. She had a Bible. I didn't know the differences in the Protestant or Catholic Bible. I started reading it to make my mind up, and then I told her, "Oh, I read the Bible. I didn't read it cover to cover, but I read most of it." I said, "I can't convert away from Catholicism because everything that I learned as a kid is very evident in the Bible.
Yeah.
So it seems true to me. So I can't convert to Catholicism, to Protestantism." Fast forward, I told her, well, you're not interested in converting because she had been going with me to the Sunday Noble Order for a while. So I told her, you're not interested in converting. So who cares if you understand the mass or not? I want to go check it out. So then I went by myself. And then when I went to my first, I think it was a low mass. When I went to my first mass, then it clicked to me. I said,
what year is this?
Oh, not that long ago. Maybe like 6 years ago. Maybe.
Okay, so that would be what, like 2017 or something?
I think like more or less.
20. Yeah, that's around when all of us started discovering the Latin Mass, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we started hearing about it and stuff. So, all right, are you married at this point?
We were married, yeah. We were married. But
so did you get married?
Right.
Did you get married in the Catholic Church, or was it a outside setting?
We got married initially civilly, and then I said, okay, we have to get, but culturally Mexicans, you have to get married in a Catholic church, right? So I said that. We got married civilly, but then I said, okay, no, for real, we have to get married in the Catholic Church. So then years later, we got married in the Catholic Church, and then she actually got confirmed when she was pregnant with our first.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, she starts going to the Latin Mass with me because then I told her I don't want to go to the Noble Order, not to the new Mass, whatever. Let's just go to the traditional Mass. We started going. She started going with me. I noticed she was very interested. Then they opened the confirmation, lessons. She joined, and then she got confirmed, just like that, sort of.
Dude, it's funny, man. So, okay, so first off, you see a few things here. You see how a husband will lead his wife, right? You see how if a husband takes his faith seriously, a wife is going to follow him. So when I got married, even though I wasn't well catechized, I knew enough that I had to get married in the Catholic Church. So I had to get a dispensation from my bishop. My wife had to agree to raise the children Catholic.
Yeah, same for us. It was the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So she had to agree to raise the children Catholic. And then she had her conversion a few years later when I had like a deep conversion. I was like, no, I'm not having my wife come to Mass with me and the kids and she's not receiving. Like, that's not happening. Now, luckily, my wife was very, she always just kind of let me take the lead in that stuff. So, but she initially just came into the church because I told her to. And it wasn't until a few years later that she had her own conversion and started understanding, oh, wow, like Catholicism is true, So, yeah, man, I think all of us kind of have that experience of being raised in a family where our fathers kind of failed us. Pretty sad.
Yeah, for sure. But things come around, and it's sort of like, and one thing that I told my wife when I said, okay, it's an obligation for Catholics to go to Mass. This was before when we started going to the Latin Mass, and so I said, we had moved about an hour away from where her parents lived, so she was not going to her parents' deal. So I told her, I have to go to Mass every Sunday. period, end of story, because it's an obligation. If you want to find a Protestant church that you would like to go to, I will go with you, and I'll go twice. I'll go to the mass, and then I'll go to the Protestant service. I don't care, but I have to go to mass. And we actually never actually did that.
Yeah.
She was going to mass like on and off, and then when she got we started going to a mass, she was going every Sunday, and we had daily mass, so we were going more often than that.
Now, how's your wife's faith now? Like, is she fully embraced Catholicism, or is she kind of just doing it because you told her to?
Well, I don't know. I think some days, some days she'll be like, "Well, you just told me to," but no. And I think that's what the faith at the end of the day, it's all about. It's about the interior life.
Yeah.
And so we've done a lot of reading St. Alphonsus Sunday sermons. We had a year where every Sunday we were reading his Sunday sermons. And she has a lot of questions because she has not been in the faith for her entire life, but she asks the questions, very, very, very chill, so to speak.
Well, I think it kind of shows how important it is for fathers to be the catechists in their homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not really, as long as your wife is following your lead and going to mass with you, and you're like you and I have a very big obligation to step up and catechize our children. It's just is what it is, because our fathers kind of abandoned us. And I hate to say that because we're on YouTube, and I if my dad ever watches this, I know my mom watches some of this stuff, but it was Joe and I were actually. But what's funny is all of us have this reversion, but none of us have that reversion to this Novus Ordo new church thing. Like, all of us are looking for something deeper that goes back way further than that.
Well, yeah, because it's sort of like we see how crazy the world is, and then it's sort of the grace, right? I think that probably if I was born like in Christendom, I would probably be very lukewarm.
Yeah.
But I'm always very contrarian, so to speak. So it's sort of like the grace of living in a crazy time that we know the faith goes against the world, and it's very obvious. And so, God puts us at whatever time he's like, okay, this is going to be the best time for these guys to be around. So,
well, I think the contrarian aspect of, how old are you?
I'm 30.
I always thought Alberto was older than me.
Yeah, so you guys are like the same age. So I think all right, so you guys are on the younger millennial side. But I think there's something about like the millennials, because I'm 42. I'm like a decade older than you guys, but there's something about us wanting to buck the trends of what our parents handed us. And I think every kind of, and then you even see it in the Zoomers doing the same thing. They're even bucking it even harder. So that contrarian attitude, because it's kind of funny to watch how the younger generation, especially, you see this in their opinions on taboo subjects like Israel and things like that. Like,
well, the Zoomers have this weird thing now where they're, I don't want to name accounts or anything like that, but you got these guys like Pine Sap, or whoever, and me and Alberto would on occasion joke around about these e-Thomists. And they're all like talking about Pope Francis like he's the most, they like to say the most base pope ever, or something like this. And so
only they can criticize them, by the way. Only when this is like more guys than Michael Lofton. Only they can criticize them. It's only when but because my criticism is like the actually nuanced, unlike the rat trats. Yeah.
So I mean, it's all this sort of half-baked cultural conservatism, and you're Jewish or something, and they're posting all these memes about how you're Jewish.
I think that's a lot of influence by Fuentes, right?
Well,
Fuentes.
it's all Fuentes parroting basically, and but then they'll go ahead and go on with Pope Francis, or so-called Pope Francis, who will say force the jab on people and things like this, and undermine church teaching at every turn. I don't see it, Zoomers, but it just,
all right. So this kind of gets into what we were talking about.
Well, yeah, now here we are.
So we're going to cut YouTube off.
But we're staying on Twitter.
We're staying on-
Maybe we should stay on YouTube for a little bit. That's your fault.
I think
It's not my show.
we're going to cut YouTube off. And we're going, so if you guys want to continue watching the show, first off, go subscribe to our locals. Like we're gonna, this is a unique show, but I want to be able to talk openly and not worry about censorship and things like that.
Or
So
they're words that'll get you.
yeah, it's just, I mean, if we're talking, about the people of the old covenant, the Amish, things like that, we're gonna get in trouble. So go to locals or go to the Avoiding Babylon Twitter account, and you guys can catch us over there. Yeah, it looks like it's only like 135 people in YouTube, and then most people are watching.
Oh, everybody's watching on Twitter.
Most people are watching on
Okay.
Twitter. So, all right, so we're gonna kill the YouTube stream.
That kind of tracks, considering that.
We're gonna kill the YouTube stream, and then we'll be able to talk. Let me see. All right, we're gonna remove. All right, guys, go catch us over on the other streams, and let's remove